Hi, Mrs. Gaiduma here, and today we are going to be looking at irregular verbs in the subjunctive. First, quick a minute to review. You guys remember that to make a subjunctive verb, we use the yo form of the present tense, like bailo, hago, pongo. We take off the o and we add the opposite ending. All right, now building on that and looking at verbs that have a spelling change in the subjunctive. All verbs ended in car, gar, zar, or cer, cir, ger, gir are going to have a spelling change. Let's look first at a verb that ends in car, like buscar. Okay, the yo form is busco. We can't just drop the o and add the opposite ending because we first have to change the c to qu. In the to form of the subjunctive, we would have, for example, to busques. We see how that C changed to QU. A verb that ends in gar, for example, llegar, to arrive, the G changes to GU. So we have, for example, ustedes lleguen. Another example, like abrazar, to hug, the Z changes to C. So we would have, for example, nosotros abracemos. And a verb that ends in CER. You guys know in the yo form it's conozco, and the C changed to ZC. And we'll see that in other examples too. We have, for example, in the subjunctive, yo conozca. And finally, a verb that ends in GER, exigir. The G changes to J. So we have, for example, ella exija. Now I know that was kind of fast. Examples together here. He sins. The verb here is pecar, to sin, right? That verb ends in car, so we're going to look at this spelling change. The yo form is peco, P-E-C-O, and we know the C needs to change to Q-U, right? It's an AR verb, so the opposite ending is going to be E, el peque. Good? Now, they play. Jugar is to play, right? That's cargar, zar, gar, it ends in gar. So we know the G is going to change to GU. Juego is the yo form of the present tense. The G needs to change to GU here, so there we have put that there. And it's an AR verb, so the opposite ending is going to be an E. Ellos jueguen is what we have there. Good. And I begin. Let's use empezar. We could also use comenzar. Empezar, it's a ZAR verb. The Z changes to C. So the yo form is empiezo. And we drop the O. And also the Z has to change to C. So we would have yo empiece. It's the yo form of the subjunctive, empiece. All right, and one more. To choose is escoger. Sorry, escoger. And that's a GER verb. And the yo form here is already a J. The G has changed to J, so escoja is, that's the to form. So we have escojas, tu escojas. So you do notice that these two verbs right here have the spelling changes in the yo form. All right, on to some more irregulars. Now, I don't know how much you have talked about stem changers in your various classes. Verbs that have a spelling change in the present tense. Encontrar, for example, is to find. And you know that the yo form in the present tense is encuentro. The O changes to UE. That happens with a lot of verbs. So the question is, what happens with that in the subjunctive? All right, for an AR verb, let's take a look. Yo encuentre, tú encuentres, él, ella, usted, encuentre, and then nosotros encontremos. Right? Let's look also at an ER verb. Pueda, puedas, pueda, and then podamos. So what's our rule? Our rules for AR and ER verbs is that there is a stem change in all forms except for the nosotros form. I repeat, there is a stem change in all forms except for the nosotros form. A stem change in all forms for AR and ER verbs except for the nosotros form. Now, let's look at an IR verb. This is a little bit different. We have duerma, duermas, duerma, and then durmamos. What just happened there? Instead of the O changing to UE in the nosotros form, it only changed to U. So the rule for IR verbs in the subjunctive is that there is a one-letter stem change just in the nosotros form. Again, a one-letter stem change just in the nosotros form. The O is going to change to U, and if it's an E, that'll change to I. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. For example, they think. We have pensar. The yo form is pienso. And we just drop the O and add the opposite ending. Piensen. All right, what about we think? The yo form, again, pienso, but it's an AR verb, and so we don't have a stem change in the nosotros form, which is what we're doing here. So we would have pensemos in the subjunctive. Similarly, you lie. We have mentir is to lie. The to form would be, the yo form here. Miento is the yo form. I want to say you lie. Mentir, it's an IR verb, so the opposite ending would be as2, mientas. Verb. All right, what about we lie? It just going to have a one-letter stem change. So we have miento, right? But that has a two-letter stem change. We're just going to have a one-letter stem change in the subjunctive. And we have mintamos. Mentir, it's an IR verb. The opposite ending is going to give us mintamos. So I know that sounds... All right, we still have a few more irregulars. There are a lot of verbs like soy or foy or doy, things that you can't really take the O off and add the opposite ending, right, because they don't end in O. So what do we do with those? Well, that's why we have this list of just plain old irregulars. And these are verbs that you just have to memorize. We call them dishes verbs. And those are verbs that are just plain old irregular. You have to memorize them. So estar, we have dar, ir, ser, haber, and estar. And those are irregular in the subjunctive verbs that you just have to memorize. So take a look at that on your sheet, on your notes, and use it on the practice. All right, let's go to our key notes and see what we can do. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Thanks for listening, and best wishes with the subjunctive.